Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast. I'm joined here by Derry Holt from OneUp. Derry, thank you very much for joining the show. For people that may or may not know who you are and what you do, just give us a little bit of an intro, mate.
Yeah, sure. Nice. Thanks for having me on as well. Hi, everyone. My name is Derry. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called OneUp Sales. We do sales performance management software for recruitment agencies, working with 350 around the world, from two people all the way up to, I want to say 650. Our largest client is now. Done it a decade. So as you can imagine, over the years, spoke to a hell of a lot of recruiters, learned a lot of lessons about what they're trying, what they're succeeding with, what they're struggling with, and just happy to get into some of that and share it today.
Love it. Awesome. Well, look, I'm really excited to get into this. And before we we've kind of met each other before and we've done some stuff before, but people listening to this probably don't know this, but I said this to Derry because I spoke to a couple of his colleagues and said, probably don't remember the first time we met, but the first time I met Derry, I didn't know who Derry was. And it was at one of Hisham's events. And you asked me, have you used OneUp before? And bear in mind, you just said there you've been going for around 10 years. I used OneUp back in 2017, 2018. Not knowing who you were, just being me, heart on the sleeve type character. I just went, to be honest, mate, like Cube was really good. I used North Star, that was terrible. And I did use OneUp a few years back, but I thought that was crap. And then you just put your hand up to shake my hand and was like, yeah, it was really bad. By the way, I'm Derry. I'm the CEO founder of OneUp. I was like, oh, world, swallow me up.
It tells you much how little I need to remember it, mate, because I don't remember it very well, which probably means I really wasn't that bothered.
Fine.
You used to stick on from various things like the shoutcast and stuff I do outside of the business. You get a tough skin, so I'm not that bothered by it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. But like I said to you when we jumped on a call a few weeks back, I said, it wasn't me just trying to like diss it. Like you mentioned on the when we met that it's evolved, and I'm sure we will probably dive into that. But it's evolved
Yeah.
so much. And look, I'm going through a similar type of process now, trying to build, getting into tech and stuff. And like version 1 of the idea is massively different from version 4 of the idea. We've not even built anything yet, right? So it's an absolute journey, right?
It is. It's any journey that any business goes on. And, this obviously goes into towards the software building world a little bit, but starting with that ability to prove value early on and then building out the things that make it more comfortable to use and finding complementary features. And that always comes later. So it is a journey. And version 1's always quite rough, as I'm sure, anyone who is in recruitment or even in software or remember their early days in their business, to compare it back to now, they're cringe looking back at their original sales and what they used to sell. So 100%.
Yeah, I think it's like with everything as well. And like I didn't actually plan on asking about like the gaming commentary stuff, but you can obviously see behind me I've got like a stack of games, and underneath my desk I've got my old Xbox 360 games and stuff like that. Because I look back at this is cringe. People don't know this, but I used to make Call of Duty videos back in like 07, 08, like the COD 4 days and stuff.
Nice.
And my nephew, who's now getting into video games and stuff, was like, Uncle Charlie, let me see your old videos. Me and my brother showed it. We were just like this. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
you just like, oh no, please
Those
stop.
old montages with the cringe music in the background, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. But
Yeah,
it's like
horns and
anything.
everything else that go with it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Just before we do get into the topics and stuff like that, I know obviously a few people that listen to your podcast, follow you, etc., know that you do the gaming commentary stuff. But this is selfishly because I love the gaming side. Like, how long have you been doing that? Just out of curiosity, and is there any specific types of games that you commentate on, etc.?
A little bit longer than what I've been running the business for, honestly. So I was able to set the business up because I was making money from that on the side. And then it's been one of those things that has both kept on paying well and been very, very fun over the years. So I kind of can't really let it die, to be honest with you. I got into it back when I was at university. I used to play in competitive tournaments back then. I was no good, to be clear. I wasn't like some top level pro. And just one day the guys running it were like, oh, we're looking for some commentators. So I want to give it a go. And fast forward 18 months where I've been doing it unpaid for that whole time, getting a lot of experience. You then start doing the odd little gig here and there. First, you're given a hotel, then you get paid to fly to Poland, 200 quid a day to go and interview people, for example. Then before you know it, you're off seemingly everywhere around the world. I've been to Barcelona, Rio, Montreal, Sao Paulo, like you name it. I've probably been to most countries through it now, which is very, very lucky and very fortunate for me. I used to do League of Legends, then Overwatch in 2018, which is very interesting because I was in Ukraine when martial law was declared because the Russians seized a boat out there.
Damn.
In a way, kind of thank God it was 2018 and not 2026 and the last few years, bless them. And then as of the last 6, 7 years, I've been doing Rainbow Six Siege is the main I've been doing, which is kind of like a Call of Duty shooter, just a little bit more tactical.
Yeah, nice. Love that. Love that. Cool. All right. Well, so topics we'll talk about in the episode for people tuning in. The main sort of sentiment of the conversation is going to be around where recruitment is going to be in the future around AI. Before we click the record button, I said to Derry that a lot of businesses that I've spoken to in the last 6 to 9 months have said that they've invested so much in new AI tech, but a lot of businesses are, and I'm seeing posts about this to this day, a lot of businesses are quite nervous about not investing in AI because they don't want to fall behind, but they're not really clued up around what type of tools and tech stack to get. They're just going, right, what's our budget for AI? Let's just get stuff so that we can tell people we're using AI. So I think, as an ex-developer yourself, you've got a very unique perspective on this. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to get into that. But also there's going to be a few things we'll talk about. When we jumped on a call a few weeks back, Derry was saying that he has hosted quite a few like roundtables with founders. And a common theme has been a lot of recruiters and founders are quite reluctant to share insights and ideas that can help the industry. And I think that's quite a typical recruitment kind of mindset, unfortunately. But
Mm.
we'll just talk around about that, like why that is and some of the insights that Derry's learned. So yeah, it should be a really, really good episode. So let's just start off with the last thing that I mentioned there, Derry, because when you mentioned that you do quite a few roundtables and stuff like that, I was very interested. And when you said about how recruiters and founders are a bit skeptical and scared to share ideas and insights with one another, I'll start off and ask you like why you think that might be. Hey guys, quick one before we jump back into the episode. If you are a recruiter who feels like half your week disappears into admin, follow-ups, data cleaning, and jumping between several different tools, then listen up because this episode is officially sponsored by Sourcewell. Sourcewell is the recruitment productivity platform, and I don't just mean another tool that you'll forget to use. I mean the tool that actually gives you your time back. You can run your entire desk in one place. Outreach, sourcing, data enrichment, multi-step email and LinkedIn sequences, inbox management, and even call notes. It's all there, synced, automated, and according to their stats, recruiters using Sourcewell see 56% higher response rates, double the pipeline, and approximately save around 8 hours of admin every single week. If you're like me, admin as a recruiter is the devil, and this productivity platform really helps you save a load of time. So reach out to Sourcewell, go to sourcewell.com. It's a fantastic platform. I've used it myself. I really believe in it, and I'm super grateful for them sponsoring the podcast. Let's get back into the episode.
I think it's been the case for as long as I've been in recruitment now, which is over a decade. And I think it's a very, very fair fear to have because ultimately, yeah, if every software vendor sold exactly the same product or delivered a very, very similar product, maybe it's serving, I don't know, something like Zero, a finance product, right? And everyone was doing something very, very similar. You'd be kind of hesitant to talk to the person next to you because it's like, well, we're not direct competitors. Maybe you're serving large businesses and I'm doing small, but we're all still in recruitment, right? So it makes it a little bit hard to want to share those things because otherwise it feels like you're letting trade secrets out the door. You're helping your competitors get a leg up. And I think there's this always perpetual fear that, oh, someone who I share all this stuff to, if we say a market's really great and here's how we're cracking it, they might think, oh, well, we know recruitment, we can have a go at that as well. And obviously, it's far more complicated than that. Doing engineering recruitment to doing medical recruiting, for example, completely different fields that you have to play inside of. But I think that just that natural fear to not want to give people info, especially when it feels like such an incestuous industry. I think we've all seen cases where someone's, left S3 and then jumped around a bunch of different companies and taken all the learnings with them as they've gone. There's sort of that aspect of it, but there's also the one where junior consultants can come in, for example, be with you a year and then leave and likely go to a competitor very, very quickly. Or at least another recruitment company, maybe in the local vicinity if you're based in the office. And so I think there's just a few reasons that rack up as to why founders then don't want to share too much and don't want to, give all the information out to their peers, even necessarily to their team as well. It's a case of protecting yourself, which I can't really fault them for.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess the follow up from that then is what's the incentive for someone to share those ideas and insights then, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, again, we've seen this a lot over the dinners, and I think the nice thing is we are seeing people being more willing to open up to those in different sectors. Like especially after COVID, I think that this really improved. I mean, the big incentives to it naturally are, just because it might not be directly into your sector, there's still learnings that can benefit your sector on what you can see happening in other ones. You also learn from those maybe that are more of a niche recruiter versus those that are quite broad. There's lots of lessons and ideas you can take from them. And being truthful, it's a classic. It's a big thing that a lot of software founders get wrong very early on is they don't want to tell anyone about this amazing idea they've got because, someone will steal it and build it. And you kind of realize everyone's busy with their own thing. They haven't really got the ability to spin on a dime and just suddenly launch into a whole new sector and compete with you. It's just not really a thing. And so I think as long as you get the right people in the right space, like the ability to share lessons and mistakes and things that you're learning and especially with things like AI, what you're finding is actually working is super, super valuable. And that's the kind of stuff that we saw at the dinners over the last year.
Mm. Yeah, it's I've always been a firm believer in, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I set the podcast up, right, is to help the industry and help our fellow peers. I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous episode, but something that inspired me a lot was when Joe Rogan moved from LA to Austin. He had been saying prior to that move that the comedy scene, and look, I like comedy. I'm not really massively like in the know-how about it, but the thing that he would be banging on a lot was like East Coast versus West Coast, and I want to make sure that I get this spot or this TV show deal. And he was like, "What are we doing? Like, we should be helping one another." And granted, that seems a bit naive in the recruitment space because if you and I both set up an IT recruitment firm in London dealing with the same customers, I get the idea of like,
Isn't it?
yeah, you'd want to kind of be, selective with what you share and stuff. But, I think a good example, and I wanted to ask you about some of the key sort of insights that you got from those roundtables. I think, look, if you're doing healthcare recruitment and someone else is doing healthcare recruitment, you don't necessarily need to say that, oh, we've implemented this process that has allowed us to win this account and stuff, but just like running the business type insights. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like just to help each other out. I think
Totally.
where I see that working quite nicely, bizarrely, is in rec to rec. Like I've had a lot of rec to recs on this podcast, and there's so many like rec to rec group chats where they're all just chatting with one another and saying, "Oh, Derry's looking for a trainee recruiter. Like I'm struggling. Has anyone got anyone?" And they do split deals and stuff like that. Like
Totally.
I think that's that works quite well. But from those sort of dinners and stuff, like what was some key sort of insights or things that you learned from them yourself?
Yeah, I guess to kind of take a step back and talk about what these dinners are, because I've mentioned it a few times now. Basically, once a quarter, we like to get roughly between 10, 15, sometimes a little bit more people into a room together. We have dinner and we sit and talk because I think everyone would agree, yeah, a Zoom call is okay, but you're still in work mode. Whereas when you go to a dinner together, you sit down, everyone has some nice food together, like you sat next to each other for a couple of hours. You've kind of got no choice but to talk and learn
Yeah.
more about each other, whether it's personal info, like, well, tell me about your family, your hobbies, your interests. You learn what football team people support, sometimes the GAs of the room, for example. And then you also find out a lot more about the business that way. And it leads to really good conversations. And the number of times that people have then left these dinners with, the contact details, people they've been sat next to because they want to catch up and get a coffee and talk shop a little bit more. It's amazing. And for
Mm.
us to kind of sit there as facilitators, like we don't come in and make it a massive pitch thing about OneUp. We do say, we are hosting it. We are OneUp. Here's what we do, but we're paying for the dinner. So of course we're going to say who we are. But then we say the chat's not about us. What we're really interested in is hearing about your challenges and what you're going through and what things you're currently trying to do to maneuver your way through a tough market. And so for us, we get to just sit back and take in all these insights. And obviously that can feed in towards content we produce, what we do with our website, the kind of guests that we get on the podcast. And yeah, it's led to a few deals as well, which is great for us. But that's not really the main reason we do it. For us, a lot of it is the content and the learning side, which is really, really good. And if I look back at the ones that we've had across this year, naturally AI has always been a conversation topic. Like I really thought we'd get to a point where people were sick and tired of just hearing about AI, but it has very much stayed a front of mind thing that everyone raises each time. And one that we had was Nigel Romano for Opus, for example. He was very open and sharing, here's how I basically run the business with AI and how it saves me 2 or 3 hours a day. And he was sharing with the room the kind of things that he puts into it, like, meeting notes that he's had that day or performance reports based on what's happening inside of his team. And he can just then go and ask it, I've got this meeting coming up, like, what do I need to know about it? And the AI can then go away and summarize all the things from previous meetings or reports that he's had, bring that into a meeting for him. And that just means he's so much more like ready to launch into it and isn't spending an hour getting all this information together to actually know what's going on. And that was a real, like, one simple example. There was someone else that was speaking about how they're slowly adopting it and they've used it on the candidate side, but aren't yet rolling it out into their internal workflows. And when in fact, although this wasn't the dinner, I look back at the podcast, even I did a couple of days ago with Chris Attire, who's the founder of Engtal over in Chicago. He was saying about how they've been using AI as well for being able to drop in a bunch of CVs and for consultants who don't have the full information and depth about a given market, being able to ask questions like, what makes these candidates different, or what are the keywords here that really stand out in terms of skills on these CVs, and being able to use it in that way. The things that I've heard about people like use cases has just been so fascinating to know. Other things have been like, how are you managing underperformance right now during a tough market? It's been, when do you decide is the right time to go into a new market and try a different niche? How do you niche down so you don't water your brand down so much? We've had conversations about software vendors. One person raised that LinkedIn was trying to charge them 400% more at renewal, and they were asking themselves, is it really worth it anymore? Yeah, the topics are so wide and varied that it just makes it such, again, an interesting melting pot of experiences and stories and ideas and learning. Like, it's wonderful.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds really cool, man. I'd love to. I've been speaking to my business partner about doing exactly that in probably the next 6 months or so, and I think it's super valuable. And I've been to quite a few of these like AI in recruitment, networking events in London and stuff. And as you say, like when you're in a room and you're able to just sit there, there's no, yeah, granted, you got your phone, but you're not on your phone, you're not on your laptop. You
That's
know,
it.
the amount of times where I'm sure you have this or your team have this, you're demoing something or meeting a customer and they're doing this, like looking around and clicking away.
Notifications coming through, they're getting phone calls, they're being distracted. It's a nightmare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why, like, look, we're doing this on Zoom, but you know, the face-to-face aspect, and I'm going to sound like I'm like saying the same message over and over and over, but like where you said about AI still being the forefront, like I've noticed a lot of my episodes recently that has just naturally come up in conversation because it's like a tidal wave that we can see from miles away. We know it's coming, so it's
Yeah.
going to be. It's no longer just a buzzword. Oh, let's talk about AI to get engagement. No, it's fucking real. But the constant theme from conversations I've been having with people is that look, when we have all this technology and we've say for example we've got a bunch of agentic bots that can screen thousands of candidates and always go back to people and stuff. What's the key fucking differentiator as a recruiter? Well, the key differentiator is exactly what you've just said. Going out and fucking meeting people, mind my language, but shaking hands, looking someone in the eye, like having those types of conversations. So, you know,
Mm.
I still think that call me old fashioned and who knows, this could fucking change, right? But I genuinely believe that that face-to-face interaction and that dedicated time one-on-one, etc., is just going to be so valuable moving forward. If you are a recruiter or a recruitment business owner and you are wondering, how do I elevate my skills in recruitment? How do I help my team improve their BD practices? Is my strategy working? Why are people not picking up the phone? Why am I not able to pick up the phone and be confident in selling? Why am I not able to get more clients on exclusive, sell my first retainer, get higher fees? Why am I struggling to convert clients from an initial cold call? Or maybe I'm not even getting clients on the phone. Like if you're struggling with any of those types of things, the short answer is there's no like silver bullet for this type of stuff, but that is ultimately exactly what I do. I help recruiters and recruitment business owners specifically with recruitment, business development, performance coaching. So if that is something that you are potentially open to, all my details are below here. You should definitely follow me on LinkedIn, message me there. Always happy to help. And first time we speak, I'm not going to charge a penny. Ultimately, this podcast, I want to help people, right? So if you are interested, reach out to me and let's talk moving forward.
Yeah, it's something I've spoken about actually on that podcast a couple of days ago as well. Is yeah, we hire people, we hire recruitment consultants, and the clues in the name, you know, consultants is the key word in that. I think at the minute the job is so locked down by a lot of admin, you know, note taking, you know, calls and all the other things that stop you being a consultant and building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, as an industry, we're regarded as very good people, as we quite rightly should be. You know, that business is quite literally people, taking them from one place, finding them a role and putting them in that role and building relationships to get that job done effectively, right? But at the minute, probably 20% of our time probably regularly gets spent on building relationships. If we get to a world where a lot of that admin is obfuscated away because of AI and all the things that are boring, tedious, monotonous are gone, and we instead can focus on spending 80% of our day on the phone speaking to candidates, meeting up for lunch with clients, for example, and actually making sure relationships exist, that's going to be the future we're heading towards and one that I'm really excited about. My only worry about it, and the one fear I do have at the minute, is what happens to the junior consultant layer of like people who come in and generally start out with quite transactional, low deal recruitment. When that disappears, do we then eliminate a little bit of a talent pipeline and towards more experienced and seasoned recruitment consultants? It's very possible. You can certainly accelerate someone's development very quickly with AI to get them to building relationships as their main skill rather than learning the rest of the job. But I'm just very, very conscious that in the same way we're seeing that a little bit in the engineering world at the moment, it could also come and hit recruitment over the next 5 to 10 years.
That's a really interesting point, actually, because this is happening across so many different industries where, you know, there are essentially developers, etc., that are coding their way out of a job, right?
Yeah.
Um, how would that work then? So if I was a recruitment founder and I typically hire trainees, and let's just say in the next 5 years' time, the stuff that the trainee would do, like, you know, like a research associate, adding people to a spreadsheet, to hot lists and stuff like that, you know, yeah, how's that going to work with a trainee? Like, what would a trainee then be doing essentially
Hmm.
in
I
like
think
five, 6 years?
they'll launch in towards being a consultant. I think like, and that sounds really obvious, but they literally will. I think you'll come to a stage where the bar for getting a job in recruitment will become far higher, as it probably should be, because it was, you know, I think that's obviously got a reputation for itself, especially in the UK market, for being quite a transactional thing. You know,
Mm.
you're just a CV factory, you just spam them at me to try and fill a requirement. Whereas other markets, it's seen as a very prestigious career. I think we'll get towards that point when the bar for entry just naturally starts to raise higher and higher, where you will want people who are very, very naturally curious, who are very, very good at building relationships and are people first and foremost, over a bum in a seat that can send out a bunch of CVs and maybe net you a job. It's going to increase the bar to entry, but I think that's probably a good thing to get the profession back the strong reputation that it once used to have.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that at the minute, I said this to a family member that in order to get a job into recruitment, you need to be able to speak. And that's basically it. Like,
Very
realistically,
fair
like,
point. It
you know,
is.
if you can speak, then you can find a job in recruitment, right? There is so many recruitment businesses in the UK. So the bar for entry is no qualifications, it's not regulated, and that's a whole other debate. But the way I kind of see it, that a trainee consultant comes in, you've got essentially a tech stack. You've got agentic AI that are screening hundreds of CVs for you, that are like pre-qualifying your applications, and the trainee consultant is essentially trained to qualify properly on the phone. So like not just saying, Derry, do you have a certificate in XYZ? Do you live here? Is actually like, why, what are your motivations for leaving, et cetera, et cetera, and generating information out of that call that might not be present online. Like I talk about this a lot, and some people are like, this is old fashioned. The old fashioned stuff still works, of like speaking to a candidate and figuring out that the company they're leaving has 3 vacant roles that aren't being advertised online. Will the AI be able to see that? Maybe in the future, but right now it
Yeah.
can't, because that's been kept internally. And that's where a really good consultant can figure out the pain points of, okay, with these 3 developer roles that have not been filled, why is that? What's the pain point? Why is that making you want to leave, etc. That's where I think that, you get a good trainee consultant that's fantastic at speaking with people and curious and all that type of stuff. Those are the things that you just get them to be upskilled on. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, and it kind of comes back to a little bit of disillusionment with AI. I think in a way, like we have a rule internally where for a long time we set out our policy with AI was wait and see. We're not going to rush in and start building AI products and features. We're not going to start doing things just to say there's AI inside of our thing, because there was this whole like hype cycle for a while of companies will only buy products that say that they use AI because it ticks a box on their side. And I was a little bit like, well, I don't believe in that. I still believe in focusing on the outcome is what you're really after. Whereas now we've changed from wait and see to being more about steady experimentation and being very, very careful. Because, as someone that, still develops products and still works with AI an awful lot, I can very clearly see that what you envision it doing in a perfect scenario is all well and good. But the reality in the day to day is it will miss things and it will make mistakes as it goes along. Like we've all seen the crazy things that ChatGPT can do, like telling you that there's 2 R's in strawberry when really there's 3 and things like that, right? Little silly things. That's like really a very minor example, but it can do the same on larger sets of data as well. And so the big, bold, underlying line that we had in our kickoff deck last week was never 100% believe anything it tells you or anything it does. You have to go and verify it and check it yourself. So while the dream is being sold by these AI companies, as it naturally should, because it's their marketing material, of course, they're going to speak like this. Them saying, all right, it can screen thousands of candidates for you an hour and you'll never have to screen again. Sure, if you want it done to a very, very basic level, but if you really want to understand a candidate and like you say, potentially source roles that exist behind it, that's when you're still going to have to be involved to some degree. So trust, but verify is the tagline that I would give.
Yeah, that's a good tagline. Did you see the episode that I released this week with the first ever AI only recruitment business?
Don't think I did. No, how's that going for them?
Surprisingly quite well, but it's a
Good.
very different. So I challenged him a lot, and I'd urge people to listen to it because it's a very unique type. And this isn't me just trying to plug it. It's unique, right? He initially messaged me and said, I've set up and sold many recruitment businesses, etc. Don't want to deal with humans anymore, so I just basically manage a bunch of AIs. As soon as he said that, piqued my interest. I was like, what are you on about? And my skeptical brain was like, this, be honest, this sounds like shit. Like, let's have a chat. Spoke to him about it, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, come on the pod because I think it's something that people would like to hear about. Basically, the way it works, he's got a bunch of agentic personas that every single sector, every single type of role, all they do is they screen candidates from the entire internet through the applications. They never not go back to people, and they just purely communicate with candidates and clients via email.
Yeah,
But they don't. The fees are minuscule. So it's
I
just
bet.
a pure volume type of thing. And so far, look, I mean, he showed me his inbox where it was like 26,000 emails that are coming through every single day throughout the different personas and stuff like that. And I was like, that's, and I was like, do you ever have to speak to anyone? It was like, I've actually spoken to 2 clients since I've set this aspect of the business up. And
Interesting.
his belief is that he thinks it's going to go more towards that. And I challenged it and said, I think personally that there are going to be some, because his idea was that people just don't want to speak to recruiters anymore. Maybe, I don't know. I personally think that there is still going to be a space for recruiters, just not the shit ones, basically.
The transactional layer will disappear, which is exactly what he's filling. And again, is what the guest had a couple of days was saying is, the transactional layer probably will disappear and be automated out with AI. But this is why relationship building is then the skill becomes very, very unique to the profession, where people will become very, very good, is you can invest more time in those relationships. And I always say, like, AI will never be able to shake your hand. A robot will be able to do that. But full well there's not a human, a personality behind that you can then build that relationship with. And anything that you are trying to build a relationship with is just ones and zeros somewhere. So that will always be the unique thing that we have. But I'm not surprised if he's doing well. If he's charging cheap fees, then naturally there's always going to be a market for cheap fees in it. And it is a transactional layer. I'd say good luck if an AI is trying to run like exec search, for example. That's a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. So one thing that you mentioned to me when we sat down a couple of weeks ago is that AI will never be this shit or never be this bad, whatever the phraseology was that you used. So I guess where I want to go with this right now is that if I'm a recruitment founder listening to this, or even if I'm like a recruitment consultant and I'm speaking to my manager about like, well, we're a little bit behind, we need to invest. Most people like myself are just using ChatGPT to automate certain things or whatever. What specifically is out there at the minute from your experience that you would say is, I don't know whether it's a recommendation or something that, founders, recruiters, etc., should kind of look into when it comes to AI for recruitment?
Yeah, the line that I said is this is the worst it will ever be. And you could say that's true of anything, right? Like mobile phones, this is the worst it will ever be. It's like the next iPhone generation that comes out, maybe it'll be a slight step down, but it's unlikely. It'll have better battery life, a better quality screen, whatever. Every generation gets better. And it's exactly the same with AI. And the race I think that everyone is now stuck in is trying to find the right time to get on the wagon. If you join a year late, you miss a year of growth and opportunity that your competitors are going to find. So of course you want to find it early, which is why I think there's quite a rat race to try and find the right solution now and get it benefiting you, and why in a way people shout about it so much. AI companies, like I've said, especially, will sell you the perfect vision, the perfect outcome, even though that isn't always going to be the outcome that you get to witness and experience. So that was where that statement came from. It will only get better day by day, and that's the exciting part about it. So be very, very cautious in terms of what you experiment with and when, but there's nothing wrong with giving it a go. I think what the issue many are facing today is they're happily spending 30, 50, $99 a month, for example, on a tool to give it a go. But they're trying about 8 different tools all at once to try and automate everything. Whereas I come back to what one of the guests said at our dinner back in October, where he was like, we're only focusing on the candidate experience for now. We're not trying to burn a bridge, burn bridges and do absolutely everything, raise the city to the ground and build it from afresh with AI. We're picking one area. We're focusing on that. When that's good, we'll work on the next area after that and keep on taking it one step at a time, because they don't want to rush into it and have to repeal many, many mistakes they make by trying to go a little bit too deep. Now, does that mean I'd look around the market and say, well, here's one particular bit of software I think that actually is over that line and is perfect? I couldn't tell you because I don't use a lot of those tools day to day. Like even internally, we're careful about the AI tools that we use and how much it might benefit us, for example. So I don't have a definitive answer to offer you as like gold dust in this case. Ones that I would look at are ones that have been at it now for 18 months to a couple of years and started to get a really mature product. If they've lasted this long, if they've been around and they understand the industry, there's a very good chance what they're doing is now actually to a pretty good standard and is worth taking a serious look at.
I don't know if I mentioned this to you when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, but a lady called Sarah Leet that came on the podcast, and that episode's done really, really well. I think she's run her recruitment business for over 15 years. And she was initially very skeptical about using AI. And she went out of her way to demo as many different products as possible, similar to like what you said, like just demo some things and just see kind of what sticks. And a few things that she kind of looked at that were quite good were, for example, I'll give you the challenge. The challenge she had was that they had so many applications on their adverts and through the website and stuff. And customer service for her is absolutely massive, and it just was unmanageable. It was like taking an entire day for one of their recruiters to just politely go back to candidates, to be like, unfortunately, da 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 da. So she looked at automating that, and that's gone quite well. And then there's like some automated tasks that pop up for, if they're not good for that role, but they're a good candidate, then it prompts the candidate, the consultant, to then still call them. If they are an out of region candidate that has applied for a London based role, etc., then it's kind of a thank you, but no thank you type thing. One thing she did, and I'm interested to get your opinion on this, one thing she did demo was sales agents. And I don't know if we had this conversation. Her opinion was, sounds great, but way too early for that type of thing. And in her market, it's not exec search or super senior, but she just feels that her candidates, clients, etc., if they had an AI say, "Hey, Derry, it's Charles. I'm Charles's AI. You've applied to the job. Just wanted to ask you a few questions." It was so janky. And it goes to your point around it being it's the worst it's ever going to be. Maybe that's going to be fantastic in the future. But when it comes to sales agents, customer service agents, etc., I've got my own opinion that I'll share in a second. But tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Like you've already said to it is the worst it'll ever be, and it's getting better. Like probably 18 months ago, I took a demo of a bit of kit that was aiming to be like it's a way that recruiters or salespeople could like train their sales skills by saying, okay, here's our product, here's the kind of persona that we sell to. It would generate a bunch of those personas, each varying in difficulty, and you could then cold call and try and convince them to take a meeting with you about whatever it is you're trying to sell. But the problem with it was like you would finish speaking, there'd be like a 2 second gap while the AI processed what you said, and then it would start speaking. And normally it would kick off with the whole like, absolutely, you're so right kind of vibe. And it's a little bit like, again, I can see the vision, and if this worked, it would be great. But the actual implementation slash execution is what's really, really lacking there. Whereas now you look back a week ago at a company that I invested in recently called Kulu, really cool bit of kit. It's like an onboarding AI agent. Like you hop on like a Google Meet with it. It says, can you share your screen? You share the screen. It can see what you're clicking. It can see what you're saying as you go along. And you can even ask it questions to go, oh, how do I build this report inside my CRM? I can't find out where to get there. And it'll go, oh yeah, cool. And then based on all the knowledge docs it's got in the back end, it will scan all of that and go, so you click this button here, you click it, it goes, okay, and now go here. And it's just like a human walking you through how to use products at the very bare basic level. And that's really, really cool. I think if we get to a point where, for candidates, you can say, you can speak to an AI agent now and they can answer you quick questions for you, or let us know and we'll give you a call back in a couple of days when we've got availability, or book in a slot with us, whatever. Giving someone that option will be cool, because a lot of the time someone might just have a very, very simple question like, just wanted to check what's the salary range for this job. And it would be able to tell them that very, very simply. But it's about exposing that information so the phone call to the AI agent is actually useful, and ensuring it isn't waiting 2 seconds to reply to you. What a lot of the AI companies have been doing is what we do as humans. Like, as I'm speaking to you now, I haven't finished my sentence, but you can generally guess how my sentence is going to end based on where it's going. So you're already thinking of a response before I've even finished talking, so you know immediately how to start responding. So with AI now, they can start chunking up sentences and submitting it over to the AI and saying, okay, you can really see where this conversation is going, so it can start its processing before you finish the last, say, 2 or 3 words and have a response ready for you. That makes it feel much more conversational and real time, which is a really good improvement.
Yeah, the thing you mentioned earlier about the AI, when it just waits to kind of process and then you continue. I tried a couple of like the AI role playing tech, and obviously I'm not the one building it, but we've got a tech guy that's building it at the minute, and that was the number one thing I said to our CTO with like, if I'm cold calling a CTO or a CEO and I'm do a terrible intro, I don't want it to process it for a couple of seconds and say, thanks for your time, Charles, but unfortunately, we're not looking for someone right now. And then it just starts and you go, okay, well, how are you getting on with recruitment right now? We're not doing so good, but I don't want it. That's not realistic. And I've seen some, like I follow quite a few people on YouTube and stuff where the AI now is interrupting people, and you can hear the clanking of the keyboard in the background and like the breath of the person and stuff like that.
I
And
just
I'm
hate
like,
that. It's so weird. It's like fake engine sounds in cars. I'm just not a fan.
yeah.
Can't do it. It creeps me out, man. It's weird.
Yeah. What I was going to say to you about my opinion, my wife bought me a like a Groupon voucher for a sensory deprivation tank. I used to do them pre-COVID, like once a month, and I love it. I've been since pre-COVID now. It's been so long, and I was trying to book it online. I was having an absolute nightmare, and I was like, let's just call the place. Like, I don't know how to use this voucher. So I called up and it went, hello, welcome. This is the AI agent, Sarah. I'm new to this, so please bear with me. And if you can just tell me your name, I'll be able to help you. And I was like, whoa, the AI is purposely saying and okay, great. So then it basically gave me some like preset prompts for me what to say. Like, what is your name? It's Charlie or Charles. Well, what are you looking to do? I'm looking to book that. And it was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. When I went through that situation, I was like, I get it. I understand why they're doing this, but immediately I was just like, this is annoying. This is
Yeah,
actually so annoying, and like it kind of made
absolutely.
me think, nah, I can't be fucked. Like I can't be fucked. Like if I called that place without a voucher, I'll be genuinely honest, and I'm sure there are many people out here going, do you know what, Charles? I probably agree with you. I would just have called the next place. And if I got through to a human and they go, yeah, sure, when are you free? Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Do you want me to book you in now? Yeah, cool. All right, man. See you then. Then if I
Done.
get a call
Yeah.
from a real human going, oh, our agentic AI had a conversation. I'm sorry, mate, too late. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know whether that's going to be way better in the future, if there's a better way to do that. But
Yeah.
and maybe it's because of just who I am, but I think for some people, if I call a recruitment agency because I've applied to an ad and you have that person call you who's Derry's agentic AI, I think it would piss a lot of people off, man. I don't know.
I'd kind of feel like, am I not worth your time to speak to as a human being? Like, do you need a
Yeah.
robot to be speaking to me for this? Like, that's why it needs to be engagement on the other side's terms. I think if they want to ask a quick question and get instant info, that is what an agentic AI can help you with. But if you need like help from a human and you want to speak to a person just to feel like they've heard you and they've got your needs in their mind, then they need to have that option to speak to a human as well.
100%. So I know you obviously weren't really necessarily able to answer the question around specific like AI tools and stuff, but maybe if I reframe the question to you from founders and business owners that you've been speaking to that have been investing in AI rather than like the specific tool, what would you say are aspects of their business that they have utilized AI with and seen great benefits from?
The best place to start is always internal stuff, I find. This is where a lot of inefficiency exists when it comes to, the classic thing we all see these days is note takers everywhere, right? Being able to get notes taken down for you, be able to summarize what actions were discussed in the meeting. That already saves me like so much time in a month when preparing a board report or doing follow up off the back of a leadership team meeting, things like that. That's the easy low hanging fruit, right? Get yourself a note taker and have it deal with that. Your next step up is then to really start interacting with something like ChatGPT or Gemini or some other large language model and being able to share context about your business. And the way you can do that is maintain like a separate document where you write down, okay, here's the business, here's what we do, here's like our ideal target customer, current structure of the team, here's how we like to do things, here's a bunch of our internal training like L&D documents and processes that we have. Give it all to it and then just start asking it a few questions or explaining situations to it, like saying, got a client who's mentioned this, they've asked us for that, we're not really able to do this, what would you advise? And it can just serve as a really helpful consultant. Because again, I come back to not a recruitment consultant, like a consultant to the
Yeah,
business.
yeah, yeah, no, of
But I
course.
come back to that example from a couple of days ago where they've got these couple of tools now in ChatGPT where someone who doesn't know the first thing about the energy renewable sector as a new trainee can go on there and say, I've got these CVs, I don't fully understand the terminology. Can you explain to me what this means? Can you tell me the key differences between these candidates? Can you tell me what would make my pitch for this person more effective than pitching this person over there? And it just means that when you're then going and speaking to your clients, you sound far more clued up. Like the thing that I always reference is whenever I used to get CV sent to me by engineering developers, they would always say, oh, he's got fantastic skills in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If anyone knows even a single thing about coding, that they're like the building blocks of the internet. Like every developer knows what those things are, and having a skill in them isn't really a thing that a web developer needs anymore because it's just kind of assumed that you know what it is. It's like assuming you know how to read and write if you're going for a job as a linguist or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
I
It's
was going
really
to
not
say
too
if you're
hard.
going to go for a recruiter, I'm proficient in Outlook and LinkedIn message. Like,
Exactly. Well done. You know how to navigate an email inbox. Congratulations. Wow, I've got to hire you because of that. That's assumed basic skills. But if an AI can kind of point out to you, these things that you're mentioning here, not that important. This stuff here is what really sets this person apart. That's where it starts getting interesting. It covers knowledge gaps and like proficiency gaps and experience gaps that your team may have today and just makes them much better recruiters. And again, with the lean towards being relationship first, if you can come across as an expert and a trusted advisor, you're already fulfilling that role of a consultant, right?
so it sounds to me then that realistically, in terms of like budget allocation for a lot of founders, where they're like, what tech do we need to get? You probably don't need to spend an awful lot of money right now with ChatGPT being as good as it is, right?
I'd agree. Yeah, like the problem is a lot of tools that existed, and every time ChatGPT or Anthropic or Gemini gets updated, there's always the joke that another 500 companies have just died because so many startups are just wrappers that are built around this. Like you go in there and it'll say, "Oh, pass me a couple of CVs and I'll sort everything out for you." All it's really doing behind the scene is going to ChatGPT with a massive pre-written prompt saying, like, "This is a CV for a candidate going for a job like this. Here's the job description we've been provided with. Please answer as a knowledge in your knowledge as a recruitment consultant expert. What would you do in this situation?" And that just passes that information back out to the user on the other end of this product. They charge you 50 quid a month for it. Bob's your uncle. They're making money. While really all you've got is a fancy wrapper that sits over something like Gemini. And so that's why I think like it is worth just playing around with AI and starting to do it yourself. Yeah, a good example is one of our senior team members recently has gone on mat leave. And she was like, are there any skills that you would suggest that I work on while I'm away if I find myself bored and just need something to do while I'm waiting to have the baby? And I said to her, the best thing you can probably do is learning to build tools with AI. Like whether it's Replit, Lovable, anything like that. You can build your own tools, assuming you aren't needing like really complex data behind it all. Because the future is going to be when you come to hire someone, people have got relatively equal like skill sets, maybe a couple of years between them. They've done similar things. The real big difference is going to come if that person come into your business and automate a lot of things away of their own role to become even more efficient. That's where they'll win. But to do that, they need to be able to work with these tools and build their own tools, right? And so that's what
Mm.
she's gone away to go and focus on. But I'd encourage that to everyone. Just jump in and start playing. It
Mhm.
really ain't as hard as you might think it's going to be.
Mm. Well, I'll make you laugh. I've been playing with V0 app,
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
know it.
by Vercel, yep.
Yeah. So obviously where we're at with our journey with Milo, we've got the technical team that's built the wireframe and everything like that. But the challenge that we've had, and you know, you've invested in businesses and still do yourself, so you'll understand that if someone comes to you with a cool concept, great, but does it work? Like, you know, does the person sound real? Like, is there a time? Like, does it fucking work? So we are in the process of doing that right now. And when we put together our pitch deck and everything like that, we were looking at the wireframe, and as you know, a wireframe's a wireframe, right? It's, you know, black and white. It's just super basic. And I was thinking, right, our pitch deck doesn't really have anything that shows what this is going to look like. So we had a big
Hmm.
brainstorming meeting on Monday, and then we were breaking down earlier this morning around how to essentially train it with our training knowledge on what good looks like in a call and all that kind of stuff. After that, my business partner said, I'll go on v0.app. And I was like, all right, went on it immediately as a non-techie person. I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. But as you said, I just had my Google Chrome split screen. One was ChatGPT, one was the V0 app. Right, I've got this. I don't actually know what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. And the key prompt, and I'd love to hear your opinions on how to, you know, get better at prompting, was I want you to act as if you are my developer, coach, consultant, compadre. I always say compadre at the end of it, like my copywriter compadre or whatever. And then it just puts like a little cap on and says, right, I'll be your, you know, developer compadre. Here's how to use the application. Here's how we should write the prompt. So I put it all in, and it's built me the entire AI UI, the coaching room, the sales lab, and I'm looking at it, sending the images to my business partner, going, I've just done this in like half an hour. This is insane. Like, obviously, there's no
Yeah,
functionality to it, but it's just to show people. But to your point, mate, I'd echo that, and I think that's a really good sentiment for people listening. It's like, even if it is just Chat GPT at the moment, just dive into it and play with it.
I
That's the
completely
biggest
agree.
thing.
Because again, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get more useful as time goes by. And you mentioned there around like prompting, like that thing around saying like, you know, act as this role for me helps because it constrains it down.
Mm,
Like I've read through a bunch of the prompt engineering guides that these AI companies have produced that kind of say, you know, here's how to effectively get what you want out of this tool. And it does say that if you give it a role and tell it like what role you want it to play, it's very, very good at then acting within the constraints of what you would expect from
yeah.
that role. So it's very, very good for it. Which is why if you said to it, you know, I want you to act as a resourcer and I want you to review a bunch of these profiles before sending them over to me or telling me which ones pass the bar for what we actually need for this. It's very, very good at doing that for you. The more context you give it, like the rules that you can say, like never in all caps do this thing, or you must in all caps always do this thing,
Mm,
it will generally stick to those rules and make sure that it's following them. So you can kind of like, without training your own model, because that is ridiculously expensive, there's a
mm.
lot of control that you can have over what it gives you back. And sometimes if one model isn't giving you what you need, let's go and try a different one. Like they do give different results because they're trained on different data sets.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. There was something that was just in my mind around, I was going to ask you around ChatGPT. Um, it might come back to me. I think it was more just diving more into like prompts and stuff because I've had a couple of people. I had this guy called Gary Truman on the podcast last year, whenever it was, and he showed me this website called there's an AI for that. And there's just a whole bunch of different things on there. And I had a little play around. And to be honest, I just resulted to coming back to ChatGPT, to be
Yeah.
honest. What other bits of advice, and selfishly, I'd like to learn from you as well, but like what other bits of advice as someone that's, you know, an ex-developer that still builds things yourself, that to get better at prompting? Because like I said there, the things that I do that might help people is that I've created different folders in ChatGPT for training, business, you know, content, marketing, etc. And as I just said there, it's, you know, I want you to act as if you are my life coach or my personal trainer. And one key thing that I do is basically, I can't remember the specific prompt, but I saw this on Instagram and it was like, don't sugarcoat things for me, because I did an experiment. This is going to sound so out there, by the way, but I did an experiment to see how silly ChatGPT could be. And there was like a South Park episode about, I don't know if you saw that, with
I haven't
Randy.
yet, no.
I'll give you context before I go because it will make a lot of sense. He basically brainstorms ideas with ChatGPT on the voice thing, and ChatGPT is like, "That's an amazing idea," da, 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 da. And he's going around the world trying to raise investment for a lucrative business opportunity, but there is no business. But ChatGPT has told him that he's a great entrepreneur, but there is
I
zero
see. Yeah,
business
yeah,
there,
yeah.
right?
It's very affirmative, isn't it? Yeah,
Very. So I had
yeah.
an experiment a few weeks ago, and I was like, let's try this. Went onto ChatGPT and said, "Hi, Chat. I've had a," and by the way, this is just hypothetical. I was like, I've just had a really challenging poo. And I'm wondering how to make a LinkedIn post that could benefit recruiters. You know that old cliche, like I got married. Here's what it like taught me about
Yeah.
recruitment. Dude, it wrote me a post and was just like, totally understand many people go through that. I'll be honest, it's a bit out there for recruitment, for recruitment, but in your voice, this is how I'd, and it literally I was sat on the toilet for this amount of time and I went for, this is what it taught me, determination, resilience. I was like, so it's telling me this is a good post. That's not a good post. That's ridiculous.
This is the classic thing where it's like you still have to use your brain. Like AI does a lot of stuff for you, but the think that I would say thinking is what the brain is good for. It's creative and it's good at thinking. It's not very good at storage, which is what an AI is going to be typically quite good at. It will remember a lot of info for you, right? But so by the same token, you need to make sure that you're the one being smart with what you're asking it to do. That you need to sanity check the answer it gives it back. It's again that classic thing that I said earlier, that underline of do not 100% trust what it tells you. Like I've spoke to AI about, if I was trying to do a product that achieved X, Y, and Z, how would you structure the database behind the scenes? And it will give me a very well thought out one. And I'll go, but what about this? You haven't wouldn't this make more sense? And it goes, oh yeah, you're right. Of course, like we should do it this way instead.
Mhm.
And you kind of think, well, surely you should have caught that in the first place,
Yeah.
which is why you've got to be prepared to challenge it and review it. Just don't trust what it gives you blindly 100%. And as for learning about prompting, like number one is dead easy and it's very obvious. Just play around with it.
Mhm.
You'll learn through giving it prompts, like what things that you say help guide it in the direction you want. You'll learn what things don't really help at all or it chooses to ignore. So that's one way to go about doing it. Another is to tell it things like go and search the internet for this. And not all models will do this. But if you say, I want you to go away and do research into at least X many websites about this topic, then come back and summarize your findings to me before presenting a solution. It's like you're telling a junior member of staff what it is that you want them to do. Don't assume that they will just have the right answer because they haven't done this thing before. Always like explain your way through. Yes, it means that you can't write one sentence and get the answer of your perfect dreams. Of course not. But you can't do that without AI anyway. So it's worth putting the effort into making sure that your prompt is like watertight before you just say, go ahead and do that thing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, mate, like you've just said, is people just need to play around with it. And by the way, that story I said about the post, it does sound so out there. When I was saying it, I was like, Charles, Jesus Christ. But it's, what you said, I was in hysterics when you said you still have to use your brain. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, they blindly use it and go, this is a great LinkedIn post. And it's got the classic ChatGPT dashes and it's just trash. But I'll make you laugh. My wife, I ended up just calling her name's Rosie and I call her Roz. I just call her Boomer Roz because she was saying that she just doesn't like ChatGPT. It's not helping. And she would sit there, Derry, for an hour a week on the Sainsbury's like web app doing the shopping, and then she's on TikTok looking for recipes. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I was like, I've just come up with an entire shopping list in 30 seconds. Here's the prompt I use. Oh, this whole prompt shit like that. I'm like, you're being a boomer. And I was like, what are you doing? So I sat down with her and created like a prompt of like, what are your fitness goals, your health goals? What are the types of foods that you like? And be really, really granular and specific. Don't just say you like Mediterranean food. Like, what specifically is it about that? The number of calories, the types of dishes. She'd done it. And it was like, here are 5 different recipes for dinner this week. Here are the macros, the micros, the ingredients. I've scanned Sainsbury's, and here are some deals that you can get on these types of things. Go and check your cupboards to see if you've got bulgur wheat. Da, da, da. And she kind of turned around, looked at me, and was like, "Fuck, okay, I've been doing this all wrong." And I was like, "Just play with it."
That's the experience of it. Yeah. The big thing I'd also recommend now, think about it, is tell it to ask you questions. Rather than saying, give me the solution, say, ask me any questions to clarify any misunderstanding or things that you feel are missing. And it will come back and ask you. I was trying to design like a prototype of some products internally. And I said, ask me questions and then keep on going until you're fully satisfied. It asked me like 47 questions. Everything was well defined. The document that I got off it was like spot on to what I needed. But it's only because it asked those questions and clarified things that I hadn't thought to tell it. Because all the context is in my mind, and I just assume that it's going to understand in the same way that you might think that your team would understand the context that you hold. It often doesn't, same way people don't. So you do have to explain yourself. But sometimes just saying, what have I missed here? What have I not explained out to you? What still feels uncertain? It will come and ask you those questions, and that's really good.
By the way, I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's something that has really rung true this week. I had a few sessions with a business coach. You might be familiar with a guy called Rich Evans. And like I always say this to people when I'm pitching my one-to-one service that like, look, I had a business coach on session 1. He just tore my business apart and was like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing that? Like, have you thought about this? And it was so worth doing. And one thing that I took away from the sessions that I did with him is that with all the knowledge that you have, create some digital assets. You don't need to brand them just like, if people really struggle with opening up on cold calls or why they're calling people or what questions to ask, put it in a one pager, put it in Canva, black and white, do a LinkedIn post, ping it to some of your existing client base, etc. And that's just a way of getting people to come inbound, right? And last night, I put a timer on my phone. It's something I've learned about ADHD. If you have a timer there, you're just like, right, I've got an hour to do this and I've got to move on. Put a timer on for an hour. And I was like, right, what are the key challenges from the conversations I've had with founders in the last 3, 4 weeks since the start of the year? The biggest challenge is people are like, yeah, we've got all right structure for BD, but the follow-ups, I just don't know what to say in email too. I don't know what to say on the second call, etc., etc. So I basically fed it a bunch of my BD training and like the coaching reports and stuff like that, and said it's exactly what you just said. I want you to continue asking me questions. I don't want it to just spit out something, whack it back into Canva and go, cool. And
Yeah.
I was there for essentially 45 minutes just going back and forth with ChatGPT. Oh, I don't like that language. That doesn't really ring true. I don't think. What do you think about that? Da, 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 da. And then eventually it spat something out exactly in my language. I've obviously gone through it, sense checked it, changed some words myself, etc. Put it together, and I was like, that's pretty good. I think if I was a recruiter, a solo founder, that'd be quite useful. Pinged it to my
Yeah.
existing customer base. They all came back immediately and went, dude, that's fucking brilliant. I was like, right, okay, I'm starting to get better with the AI now. It's
That's it.
exactly what you just said.
Playing around with it, it honestly helps so much. Like I still think it's king. It's just like play around with it, experiment. Don't ask it super crazy questions about poo, but otherwise I think you're okay.
Yeah. Again, I was just trying to experiment to see if it would actually like, think that that's a good idea. But like you said, you
Yeah.
still have to use your brain. So yeah, that's a really good takeaway. Before we come to a close, then, you've said that a lot of like the AI functionality can be used like internally and stuff like that. Now, if I was a solo founder or just a recruiter, and I want to start using AI for other aspects of the job, like post phone call, post discovery call, pre phone call, pre discovery call, etc. Like, what other things have you kind of seen? You might have already said some things already, but what other things have you seen around sort of AI that can help some of these people? Let's start with like before they get on a call, before they get on a discovery call, that can just help with the AI function. What do you think?
Before you even get on a call, like the one thing people are very, very, I think, quick to jump on is like, oh, and give me all my pre-prep like research. I'm like, it can, but don't then just repeat exactly what it gives you. Because again, sometimes things require a little bit nuance. When people information is involved, that's when I think human eyes really need to be on things and really need to be concerned with what's going on at that point. So if you are doing research, sure, use what you've got in your database, ask it to summarize any recent emails that you've had with this person, maybe others that you've spoken to inside the sector, assuming, of course, it's got access to that data, and use that to help shape what you're going to talk about. It may be that 2 weeks ago you had a conversation with someone in a similar space or even at that company and learned some things that would be useful or insightful to that person. Yeah, asking it, how could I add value with what we know about this company or about their sector today? And if it can then go and pull a lot of that context into one place, then absolutely fantastic. One use case that I think would be really easy to jump onto and that people would find helpful, it's slightly after the point you've spoken about here, is actually like call coaching or call grading. So
Hmm.
if someone's making a call and you want to understand, how good was your pitch or how good was that candidate call that you've just had, for example, most companies have got internal scorecards that they'll use to measure and know when one of those calls is good. Give AI that framework, say, here's a call, even if it's just the transcript, give it the transcript and say, here's a transcript from a call we've just had. Here's the framework we grade calls by. How would you assess the call based on what you can see? And it can give you really good feedback on, okay, actually, they were quite weak in this area. Imagine if you then expand that up to passing in 10, 15, 20 calls from one consultant or even an entire team and say, where are our biggest opportunities for L&D to succeed here? Again, it's an internal use case. Just immediately you're getting these answers out that will spend a human hours to run through and summarize the themes and come up with like suggestions and conclusions off the back of it. This is where it's really valuable, as long as, again, you've got something like a note taker that's describing or recording calls for you. That's just gold dust and super, super quick and easy to do and get started with today.
100%. Um, one of my biggest pet peeves as an L&D, in-house L&D person was sitting down, say, for example, you're a trainee consultant and you go, I've made a call with Joe Blogs, let's listen back to it. And it's a 20-minute phone call. The first 5 minutes is them talking about their dog in Italy. And then the next 5 minutes is them talking about their experience in HTML. And I'm just sat there as the coach going, where the fuck is the part we need to be talking about? And then if I skip through like Cloud Call, whatever VoIP system they have, and I've missed a key bit of information there were times where I'd leave a call coaching session going, there was an hour, but I spent most of the time listening to bullshit that was just
Yeah.
completely not relevant. And I don't think we even used it. This was only like 3, 4 years ago. We weren't really using any sort of note takers. What note takers do you use, just out of curiosity?
I use Fathom. I think others in the team, we have Jiminy, which is like a proper call coach, like deal coaching thing as well. It's a much bigger platform. I personally just use Fathom, but I've tried about 6 different ones to see what I think of them.
Yeah. What do you think of granola?
Granola, I tried for a little bit. I just didn't quite get on with the format of it. I don't know. I wasn't quite a fan of like the actual like meeting generation. Whereas Fathom, for example, I know it takes the recording, it gives me a full transcript. I can ask it questions and be like, oh, an hour-long call. What were the actions that came out of this meeting? And it will go, okay, here are the 5 things that you all agreed you'd do. If it was something like a board call, it will propose you actions on the right-hand side and tell you, here are the actions that I took away from this conversation. You can copy and paste it ready for an email into a certain like email like platform or app or whatever. It's just really, really helpful and very like useful for that. And I've tried a bunch of others and just not quite managed to get on with them quite the same way that I do with Fathom, especially given it's so cheap. So why not? Why change? Why fix what ain't broken?
Yeah, 100%. I typically see most people using Fathom these days. The only thing I don't like about Fathom is when I jump on a meeting and it says that someone's note taker is joining the call. I don't know what it is. It just pisses me off. I'm just like, what? Like, that's the one reason why I like Granola is because Granola just is in the background.
It's just on your PC. Yeah.
I've
tried a few because there's one called Crisp that did the same thing where it sits in the background, your computer and records it. But part of me is like, permission wise, I think I'd almost rather Fathom be in the call so they know it's being recorded. So if someone really doesn't want a note taker there, they can at least turn around and go, actually, do you mind if we don't have it in there? Rather than me feeling like because I guess it is technically against the law to be recording without consent in that case. If you forget to ask on a call with Granola, then you can find yourself in trouble.
True. That is a good point. That's something that we went.
Risk.
Yeah, that's something that we actually had to go through because the thing that we're building is like we obviously need to store data, but there's specific data sets that we can't store. So the technical guy was like, what I can do is I can build something that basically takes all the data, but then at the end of each working day goes through every single transcript across every single user and scrapes away data that we can't have legally. So names of addresses and things like that. But it's mad. But note takers are like, there are so many now. And, like you said, mate, it's just trial and error, which one works for you. But that's so huge. I'll tell you something that you'll probably go, yeah, fucking, I mean, obviously, like I did an academy a few months ago and I set them up on Bullhorn with like, when you're speaking to a candidate, here's the template for your candidate qualification. And I kind of like whispered to the cohort and I was like, look, the business doesn't use a note taker, but like, if you want to get one for free, just get Granola. And at the end of each call, just go onto ChatGPT, have this is my template, and this is the things to look out for. Do not look out for this, etc. Copy and paste your transcript, and you don't have to faff around adding your notes at the end of each day. And they all just sat there like, oh, okay, we'll speak to the boss, and then throughout the day, I got them all on the phones, and I'm just going over to each person's desk to like do some call coaching. And one of the guys was like, oh yeah, I've just got to update my notes. I was like, you've been doing that for 45 minutes. It's like, 2025 geez, what are we doing here? Like,
so much admin. Yeah, that's the problem with the role.
Yeah, mad. Anyway.
Yeah, I like it with things like Device, for example. Device have got like an AI summary that they then insert as a note into your CRM straight away. So like you're not even having to worry about entering any kind of notes yourself when it does it all for you automatically. It's great, and I think more VoIPs are starting to do that now as well. So it's really cool.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. All right, Derry. Well, look, we've covered an awful lot. Really appreciate your time today. I've learnt loads, and I'm sure people listening into this will have taken away some nuggets of value. But as you know, mate, I finish off every episode with the same question. Following today's episode, how can people get 1% better in recruitment?
I was going to answer this like the whole AI thing and just explore it, but I feel I've kind of already said that, and it's cheating. So probably go back to what we said near the start, which is spend more time talking to peers in your industry. Yeah, even looking at one of my senior leaders at OneUp earlier. When we were speaking about how she can develop, I said, honestly, the best thing for you right now is to go and learn from others like you, whether that's executive dinners, whether it's just going for a coffee with people or even grabbing a Zoom call. The amount that you can learn from others that aren't inside your business because of the experiences they've had that are unique to yours is unreal. So go away and learn something, bring it back to the business, try and apply it and see where it gets you. And you'll be surprised, I think, at how many things there are to learn out there that when you learn them, you just go, like that's so obvious, but because you're so busy with your job, you don't really think about it. So as a leader, especially, get out the business, speak to more people and learn from mistakes that others have made so you don't have to.
Love it. Awesome answer, mate. Really appreciate that. In order for people to reach out to you, who should reach out to you and how would they get in touch with you?
Anyone about anything, really. I'm always happy to talk about tech or talk about AI. I think the space is really, really fascinating, or to share more of what we've learned. We've got the State of Recruitment 2026 report coming out soon that looks at all of our data from 2025 and what we've learned, how things have changed, where the market has been, where it's going, cool stuff like that. So definitely reach out about that too if interested. LinkedIn's probably the best place. I'm just Derry Holt on there as well. Probably worth mentioning in a note like while you're connecting, because as you can imagine, you get so many spam connectors that I'm always a bit like, do I just say no to most of these? So It's always worth noting if you do want to talk about something for sure.
Love it. Awesome, Matt. Well, I'll put all of Derry's details below this episode. And for people that have made it this far, thank you very much. And I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Make sure that you are liking, commenting and subscribing / following the show, whatever platform it is that you are watching / listening to this on. Also make sure that you follow me on TikTok so that you don't miss out on some clips. The monthly newsletter gives you a roundup of the episodes that happened in that month with some actionable takeaways for you guys. It's going to help you get 1% better in recruitment. I would love for you to comment or message me what your biggest takeaway is from this episode. And if you or someone that you know is interested in coming on the show, as you can see, we have had such a broad variety of people that have come on the show, all in the aim to get you guys 1% better in recruitment. So if you want to help support me with the show, make sure that you're getting people in touch with me and also just reach out to me as well around the recruitment coaching training piece. That's ultimately how I fund this podcast, right? But loving doing this. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Can't do it without people that watch and listen to this podcast. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.